Sup, dudes? Ray here. The fighting game community is full of different kinds of people. We got people from all kinds of race, sex, religion, cultures, all of it. You name it, and they probably exist in the fighting game community. And throughout this diverse collection of people, there's usually two defining terms that are used the most here. You're either a casual fighting game player or you're a competitive fighting game player. What's the difference? Well, in this video, we're going to talk about it.
Yoshimitsu, get ready for the next battle.
So the inspiration for this video actually came from a video I watched the other night by a content creator by the name of Makeout TJ. He's a fighting game player, plays a lot of Tekken, and his content's really good. He talks about a lot of valid points and he strikes up a lot of really good talking points, like we're doing now with this video. Now in this particular video, he is discussing, well, not just him, but there's a group of other players discussing the difference between a casual fighting game player and a competitive fighting game player. And I want to focus on one person specifically, and that is this player by the name of Black Pharaoh. He's got some really insightful opinions, and he makes a lot of really good points. But I also think there's a lot of perspective that is missed here, and I feel like I can add that perspective and kind of add on to this conversation, because I think this is a conversation that's worth having, especially if you are trying to consider being more competitive with your fighting games, or if you're trying to take that next step, right? There are some perspectives here that might really help you understand how to take your game to the next level. Now, before we really get into it, there is one overarching concept here. There's one thing that is practice here that I really want to emphasize, and that is respect. Now, Black Pharaoh may have controversial opinions depending on how you're looking at this, but at the same time, he is 100% respectful in everything he's saying. This whole group is respectful. Sure, they're busting each other's balls, but that's more of a friend thing, right? Like, how are you going to be in the fighting game community and not have thick skin or not be able to talk a little shit, right? But at the same time, he's not taking away from the value of other people's opinions. And I really, really want to make sure we focus on that, because at the end of the day, what makes the fighting game community really stand apart, the one thing that makes it, to me, stand head and shoulders above pretty much any other genre of gaming, is the amount of respect shown between players. And it's that respect that allows us to have these conversations without letting our egos get bruised or without getting butthurt. So please, take all of this with a grain of salt. Don't read too much into it. At the end of the day, your fighting game experience is going to be your personal experience, and it really doesn't matter what other people classify you as long as you are having fun doing what you're doing. However, if you do have a problem with any of my opinions in this, if you have a problem with Black Pharaoh's opinions or Makeout TJ's opinions, if you have a conflict with anybody in the fighting game community, well, then there's only one thing to do. Run the set. So with all that out of the way, I got some clips lined up. Let's take a look at these clips, and I kind of want to offer some insight. So let's get into it. So in this first clip, Black Pharaoh talks about his definition of casual and competitive. So let's take it out.
Yeah. So what I was saying is that in Mike Hollow's stream, I was saying that there is only competitive and there is only casual. There is not an in between. And someone who is casual, which is largely the overwhelming amount of people that play online and stuff like that, right? To a casuals, their perspective of who's good and who's bad and who does what well, their understanding of the game is typically much lower than someone who is competitive, right? Partially because the people who are competitive do more labbing, do more practice, play more intentionally, right?
So far from this first clip, I agree with everything he's saying. I think the difference between a casual and a competitive player, at least the most notable difference, is their understanding of the game. How intently they play. And that's a good word. That's a good phrase he used, because I don't think a casual player can play a fighting game with intent. It takes an understanding of the mechanics, frame data, setups, all things like that to really play with intent, to make sure your moves matter when you need them to matter. And you can't get that, you can't understand that, you can't play like that if you're playing casually. Which isn't a bad thing, right? I think what makes a really good fighting game, what defines a great fighting game and sets it aside from everything else, is how casually approachable it is. How much you're able to have fun with how little you know. And I think what makes that healthy is a learning curve. How deep is the learning curve for, right? A game like Tekken, I can't really say a game like Tekken because Tekken's always been a very hard game to learn. It's been a very competitive fighting game. But even now, Tekken 8's become a little bit more casual just because of how easy it is to apply pressure. You got rage arts, burst, but we're not even talking about that. We're talking about the definition here. And I think he hits the nose, or he hits it right on the nose with the fact that as a casual player, you don't play intently. So yeah, I think that's a really good difference between that, and I think he really points that out. Now, elaborating a little bit more on this, is it bad, right? I don't think so. I think there's different ways to play fighting games, and I think what makes a really good fighting game is the curve and the difficulty and how approachable it is from a casual standpoint while maintaining the depth of a competitive game. And I think that's where we're seeing Tekken struggle the most with Tekken 8, is that it leans a little bit more towards the casual side. It almost rewards casual players more than it rewards competitive players, or at least dedicated players. So as far as his definition of what he thinks casual and competitive is and the differences, yeah, I think this is a real easy way to determine that. Now, Black Pharaoh further elaborates on this by including an example of something called a knowledge check, where character knowledge can really define and differentiate a casual from a competitive player. And he lists some examples here. Let's check this clip out.
Like Victor, Victor is a great example. Victor players' fundamentals are usually ass. They're fucking terrible, usually. Like this, goes the same for Alyssa. Alyssa players' fundamentals are usually absolutely terrible. The same goes with Hao-Rang. Hao-Rang players' fundamentals online are terrible. So like, why? Because they're super good characters and they got really cheap stuff. And if you don't understand the character or know what to watch out for, or have the fundamental, if you don't have the fundamentals to offset their offense, you're gonna get killed by it. You know what I'm saying? So like, I understand.
You know, what's funny is I actually have a really great example that kind of proves his point here. My knowledge check with Elisa is terrible. I have a terrible matchup against Elisa, and it is because I don't know her frames. I don't know her startups or anything like that. And so a lot of the times when I'm playing with her or playing against her, I'm not able to fully play with intent because I don't know how to react to specific things. And in a competitive situation, that's pretty much an instant loss. You are going to lose if you don't know how to play against these characters. And if you're trying to be a competitive player, or at least a professional player or whatever, right? You have to have that. You cannot get by as a competitive player without that kind of knowledge check. Luckily, Victor isn't too hard to guess. A lot of his setups are pretty easy to see, and a lot of his stuff requires you to kind of be close. So with Yoshimitsu, at least, it's real easy to kind of flash out a lot of things or poke out of his little low teleport move or whatever like that, right? With that knowledge of Victor, I'm able to compete and play more intently against Victors and have a better chance of winning. Whereas if you're just casually playing the game and you don't know these matchups, people like Victor, like Elisa, like Hwa-Rang are going to eat you up alive. They're going to do it a lot easier because their kits are more casually acceptable. They're more casually approachable. So if you don't know these checks and you are just kind of like a beginner at this game or don't take this game seriously enough to really delve into it, these are the characters you're going to be having more trouble with than usual. This is where Black Pharaoh and I disagree, is with his definition of what a casual is. Now, earlier he did point out the difference between a casual and a competitive player. For the most part, I agree with that. But this next clip, I don't know, man. I feel like it's a little bit deeper than that. But before I give my reasoning, let's check it out.
What is your definition of casual?
I said someone who has insight into the competitive scene. I'm somebody who's invested in the competitive scene. If you're not constantly going to your local, constantly, looking, signing up for a bracket, or if the reason you're playing online is not for competition, right? You're a casual.
So it's weird because I halfway agree with what he's saying, but I think he's being too strict on the definition. I think competitive players, yes, will always go to tournaments, will always sign up for brackets, will spend the time labbing, understanding these concepts, and doing a lot of homework, sure. But at the same time, I don't think just because you play online all the time that you're strictly a casual. I just from my knowledge as a fighting game player and using it in Tekken, right? I've been playing fighting games for a couple of decades. Nothing hyper competitive, but I have been in situations where it gets competitive. And I don't think just playing online all the time makes you a casual. I think you're overlooking a lot of other factors in this, right? There are a lot of people who may not have the social battery to go to locals, right? There are a lot of people who may not have the confidence or may have stage fright or something, right? They may feel more comfortable in the setting that they choose, but at the same time, they're also doing their homework. They're also counting frames. They're also labbing. They're also doing all this stuff that defines in your definition, that defines a competitive player, but they're just solely online. I don't think that has any weight in defining whether or not you're a casual or competitive player. I don't think you can use the medium in which you approach this game as a definition for how seriously you take it. And what I mean by that is just because someone can't go to locals, right? Maybe they're too poor, or maybe they're in a situation where they just can't do it. It doesn't make them any less competitive if they're doing the same things these competitive people are doing to prepare for these fights. Does that make sense, right? Like, I know Black Pharaoh does a lot of tournaments. He signs up for brackets, and by all means, he is a very competitive player. I'm not taking anything away from him. But what if somebody did the exact same training and practicing that you do, but only sticks to online? What if they dedicate as much time as you do labbing and have the same understanding of the game as you, but they've never went to locals? Does that make them a casual player? Right? See, that's the thing, is it's so that word casual and the word competitive, especially in the fighting game context, is so open that I honestly believe you cannot make such a basic definition for it, if that makes sense. Now the work's being put in, right? I'm not saying if you're only playing online and you're not doing any homework or anything like that, sure, you're more of a casual player. But if you're in there labbing and if you're putting in the work and you're doing it and you're investing in it seriously, I would say that's competitive. So he tries to further reinforce this definition by giving us an example of sports and basketball. And he talks about the differences between recreational basketball and professional basketball. So let's give it a listen.
But like watching other basketball or whatever it is, who's obsessed with basketball, who are not freaking professional, who are not freaking doing it for competition or money or nothing like that. They just want to be good. They just want to be good at what they do, right? And that's totally fine, right? But the rec basketball is not freaking playing in a league or playing in the NBA or playing, with a referee behind you. That's not the same basketball. And I would think that, you guys can understand that.
Now, what I want to focus on here is the phrase, they just want to be good. I can't speak for anybody here, right? There's obviously some people here that have different mindsets than I do, and they think and they process information differently than I, but I don't think I could ever want to be good at something and not be competitive at it if it has a competitive aspect. I think wanting to be good in a competitive sport by default will eventually make you a competitive player. You cannot, especially in basketball, you can't be good at these sports or at fighting games and not be competitive. Because like in order to be good, you have to exhibit some of that dedication you were talking about. You have to sit here and put in that time you were talking about that defines a competitive player. You can't get good on accident at basketball. You can't get good on accident in fighting games. You can't just casually play these games and then get good at them, if that makes sense, right? I don't know if I am or not, but you can't do that. And I think this also gives me an opportunity to talk a little bit about my definition of competitive, which I'll elaborate more on at the end of the video when I give my whole take on this. But I think in order to be good, especially at sports, you have to be competitive. You have to compete. Any competition. To be good at a competition, you have to compete. You have to be a competitor. To further emphasize this, I want to focus on a clip here, and I want to show this clip, and this is a clip of people having a recreational basketball game, and I want you to tell me if these people look like they're just casually having fun or if they're being competitive about this.
Game time. Hey, come on, man. Don't push me. Don't do that. Don't do that. Right? Don't do that, bro. Don't do that, bro. Don't do that, bro. Don't do that. What happened? What happened?
Now, this clip was a great example of my perspective on the definition of a casual and a competitive player. Now, I don't know the full context. This could have been for money. This could have been for $10,000. It could have been for $20. It could have been for nothing, right? But this also could have just been pride, man. How many pickup games of basketball have you seen where it devolves into confrontation and fighting when there's absolutely nothing on the line? Somebody gets crossed up, they get their ankles broken or something like that, and all of a sudden their pride gets hurt, and now they're in your face, and all of a sudden there's a fight going on, right? I don't think that comes from a casual mindset. I don't think people get in fights from casually playing basketball, football, whatever sports, right? We can even look at the fighting game community. All those crash outs we've seen, right? A lot of that does not come from casual playing. It doesn't come from a casual mindset. It comes from a very competitive mindset. These fights and all these stuff, they involve competitive players. That's the only reason you would get into a fight, is because you are competing against this person and either they're losing or you're losing, and it's just almost too much to handle. So we got to settle this. But just because it's not on an NBA court or it's not in some playoff doesn't make it any less competitive. Sure, the prizes are bigger, but sometimes pride is worth more than whatever you're earning, right? And I think that defines whether or not you're a competitive or a casual player. And I'll elaborate on it more by talking about some of my personal experiences and where I stand in all this and what I would consider myself to be in all of this. So first and foremost, I really want to talk about and reference the beginning of this video where we talked about how doing your homework, labbing, and learning these matchups are all part of what makes a person competitive. And I agree with that. But at the same time, I am not a visual learner. I've never been a visual learner. Even in high school and elementary school and all that, I've always struggled with being able to watch somebody do something and understanding how to do it myself. I've always been a hands-on learner. I've always had to learn by doing it. And the lessons that I've learned the most, the lessons that have stuck in my head, are all times where I've tried to learn and I failed. and I failed over and over again, but I failed enough to understand how to do it right, and from that point, I've been good with it. Let's take Yoshimitsu in Tekken 8, for example. His down forward 1 is a great startup. It's great in neutral, and it's a good way to interrupt a lot of attacks because it's quick. I know the frames on it's about 13, and I know just from playing that there are some characters with quicker startups, right? But I never acquired this knowledge or this understanding from labbing. I've never been able to. The only reason I even know how Yoshimitsu's down forward 1 matches up with other characters is just because I've been spamming it in front of other characters. I've been actively utilizing it and learning it hands-on. I've never been able to learn how to do something from just labbing it. I've never been able to do that. Like, even when I was looking up bread and butter combos and understanding all of that, like, sure, I would lab to understand the input, but I would only get good at it after trying to do it so many times. Because sure, you can lab it and understand the button inputs, but then you don't know things like frame data. At least I don't. I never was able to retain how much frame data is used, especially in strings, just because the way my brain works. But I've been in competitive situations. I would consider myself a competitive player because I've done first to 10 grudge matches. I've done money matches. I've done trash bag matches, right? I've lost trash bag matches. I've had to sit there and wear trash bags and talk about how good my opponent was, how much better than me he was, because I got competitive with it, because I am competitive with it. And I'll take this in even a step further, man. Pharaoh, you're God of Destruction and Raven, and that's a crowning achievement. That's really awesome, and that tells me everything I need to know about your capabilities in Tekken 8. But I refuse to believe that anybody can get to that level on ranked casually. I don't think you can be a casual player and just get God of Destruction. Just from getting to Tekken King, the amount of effort it required me to get there, and even, further later on, you cannot do that casually. You cannot be a casual player. You can't convince me that there's any God of Destruction in all of Tekken 8 that is a casual player. It doesn't work. I think what you're saying relates more to being a professional player, being a dedicated player. I think there is a huge difference. I think you can be competitive, but less dedicated than you would other games. Sure, I believe that's a thing, and I believe a lot of what you're saying, Pharaoh, kind of falls under that category of being a more dedicated Tekken player, being a more dedicated fighting game player, rather than just being a competitive one. You can compete with yourself. I've competed with myself. I still do compete with myself. I'm mostly competitive against myself because I want to push myself further. I want to take this further. And I want to get God of Destruction, and I know I will get God of Destruction. And I won't get it casually, I'll get it competitively. I'll get it by implementing the tools that competitive players implement, by labbing, by getting my ass kicked over and over again, putting myself through these matches and finishing these sets, even if there's no hope at the end of the tunnel. I'm still going to compete because I still have that fighting spirit. And it doesn't matter if it's money on the line, it doesn't matter if it's a championship on the line, a title belt. I could be in a Survivor Series match, right? It could be a Hell in a Cell, whatever. It does not matter. I will still be competitive. Now, I will also be casual. Ultimately, believe it's all just the mindset you take into the moment. I'm not going to play with a competitive player's mindset if I'm playing against my girlfriend or my niece or whoever, right? Anybody that doesn't play fighting games. I'm not going to be competitive against them. But you, Pharaoh, I'll be competitive against you. I will throw every ounce of my knowledge and my fighting warrior spirit at you. And I believe that you deserve nothing less because you've earned that right. You have been through the fire. You've been tempered. You are now this competitive player. But so am I because I have that same spirit. And sure, you're ahead of me on the game. This is my first Tekken, but it's not my first fighting game. And I know the mentality you need to be good at these games. And it's not a casual mentality, bro. We're not there yet. Sure, accessibility has made these games more approachable. Any idiot can blast Rage Art or Burst on any given round, right? But my competitive nature is what's going to make me better than those people. Because I'm not relying on that. Because I choose to compete with myself, you'll see that I barely ever do Rage Arts, right? I don't believe in, I don't like to win like that. Raw rage arting and stuff like that. So I kind of hinder myself because of my pride and because I'm a competitive player. I want to be a better Tekken player. And I know there are no shortcuts to that. The only way to be better at this game is to be competitive, is to compete, is to establish myself and to make my name on this. And I'm not going to get there casually. Nobody will get there casually. And it doesn't matter how many locals I go to. It doesn't matter if I'm just an online guy or not. The mindset I have, no matter what, will always keep me competitive. I don't care about our differences in rank. I'm still going to go all out against you. And I guarantee you, Pharaoh, that it's not going to be easy for you. I guarantee you, if we play, you are not going to feel like you're playing against a casual player. You may win, you will win, right? I mean, there is still that difference in God of Destruction and Tekken King, and you playing more than Tekken 8 and me only playing Tekken 8, right? There is still that tremendous skill gap there, but I can promise you that there's not much of a difference between your competitive spirit and my competitive spirit, especially when there's something to prove. And it doesn't matter if we do this at Evo or anything like that, right? If this ever happens, if we ever run a set, right? It doesn't matter where it's at. I'm still going to come at you as competitively as I can, not casually. And of course, it's all in love and fun, right? I'm not, this, once again, I really want to reiterate that a lot of this comes from respect. I am only ever talking about this out of respect for you, what you've done, and out of respect for the game. And that also goes for Makeout TJ and everybody else that's out there grinding and pushing themselves further and taking this game and really establishing their name in this world. Blackheart, Main Man, any of those people, none of them I would ever consider casual. Also, at the end of the day, I think Makeout TJ has probably the most agreeable perspective in this, and a perspective that I 100% back here.
Because we're talking about Tekken, bro. That's the thing. Like, if you talk to me about Mortal Kombat and you want to call me a casual, go ahead. You know why? Because I use 2% of my brain to play that game. Tekken is such a high-level skill game that anybody that I feel like gets to a certain level of the game cannot just be looked at as a casual player. Because casual players, to me, they don't play Tekken. You know why? Because they suck.
But anyways, that's been me. I could rant on this for hours, I feel like. So I'm just going to call it here. This is a lot of fun. I love talking about stuff like this. I love discussing things like this, especially with people who are knowledgeable, because I feel like, if anything, I gain more perspective. I gain more wisdom, and I'm able to take this and use it to be a better player. And that's what it's really all about, man, is sharing these moments with people and having these discussions with people and ultimately just vibing with each other on any level, whether we're discussing, debating, agreeing, disagreeing, fighting, whatever. As long as we're interacting with each other and it benefits the game, man, that's all that it's about. But what about you guys? What do you guys think? Are you a casual player? Are you a competitive player? Are you competitively casual? Are you casually competitive? What is it, right? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think Black Pharaoh's right? Let me know in the comments, man. Let's keep this going. Let's keep this vibe going, because this is what makes the fighting game community unique. This is what stands this community out against any other community out there. Even the FPS community, right? Your CSGOs and your Rainbow Six Sieges, right? The MOBA games, League of Legends, all that stuff, RTS games. I don't think any of those games hold a candle to how competitive fighting games can be, because at the end of the day, in my eyes, the ultimate form of competition is when it's just 1v1. There's nothing on the line other than pride. That's what defines a competitive player.